Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Here starts our SBL InFocus webinar support for June 2024 exams. Welcome to this session, to this webinar. My name is Richa and I work as Education Support Manager at ACCA. So as the title suggests of the webinar, Manage Your Time, Master Your Technique. So this session today is designed to support you with a strategic business leader exam where the expert tutor will share his insights to help you with your exam preparation. So this session is an opportunity for you to hear from him the best advice on the exam techniques and exam practice so that you are able to earn more marks in June 24 exams. This session will focus on how to deal with your case study based answers, lessons on time management, importance of question practice using the practice platform, and the best practices during the final 3 weeks before exams. And I believe this is the most important thing to know what actually you should do at this moment. Towards the end, we will also be picking selected very common but very important questions from the students that we have received by them in advance. And if the time permits, we will also be picking a few of them live. Before I hand over to Ashim, I would like to cover a few housekeeping items very quickly, won't take much time in that. At the bottom of your screen, there are a number of buttons which you can use. There is a help icon which provides resources and information to help you resolve any technical issues you might have during the webinar. There are icons for slides and media player. You will need to see both of these during the webinar, so make sure you have selected them. There is an attendee chat function, so you can engage with fellow webinar attendees, and there is the icon on the right side. Resource list is there. That's a file-like symbol. If you click on that, you will be able to access resources relevant to today's webinar, and that includes all the direct links. You can rearrange your screen to suit you and resize the windows if you need to. And if at any point you are not able to hear us, what we are saying, or you cannot see any visuals, please do refresh your browser or join again. Registering for the session means you will be sent an email tomorrow with details how you can listen to this again. So don't worry, if you miss something, you do have technical issues, you will be able to access the recording either through the same registration link or the recordings will be there in the YouTube channel as well, but those will be available next week. I'm now going to hand over to Ashim in a moment and will be back with you towards the end of the session. So if you want to ask ACCA or Ashim a question related to SBL paper, please do click on Q&A button, which is the middle icon at the bottom of your screens. Please note that we cannot guarantee responding to each and every question directly or via web chat, but we hope whatever questions we are answering, those will be helpful to everyone. So with this, handing over to Ashim, over to you.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Richa. That's great. And absolutely, I mean, our time is limited here. And so I will be going at a bit of a pace. So it'll be great that you'll be able to access the recording of this and go through it again, you know, in your own time. And hopefully you'll get more value from it. So let's kick off. The first thing to say is that, you know, welcome to all of you, and it's great to see you all here making the effort. I mean, that's half of the fight, half of the journey, right, to winning in the exam. Also, before we go into the slides that I've prepared, I just want to say something to you that you may or may not be aware of. SBL, the examination, is actually very different to the other examinations, even at strategic professional stage. So there are lots of reasons for this, including, of course, the fact that you have a pre-seen case study, but predominantly it's also different because it's about application rather than simply a demonstration of knowledge, right? So your mindset when you approach the SBL examination has to be that focused, how do I apply my knowledge, not how do I tell the examiner or how much I know. All right, the examiner doesn't care, the marker cares even less. It's all about the application of your knowledge, commercial judgment, to a challenge that you are facing in the examination, right? And that has to be communicated in a professional way within the time constraints that you face. So it's actually quite a tall order, and it's not the kind of thing that we naturally do, nor is it the kind of thing that we will have had much experience of before the SBL exam. Okay, so I want you to be in that frame of mind as we go through these slides. So let's get into it. A little bit about me. Of course, I'm an FCCA and an MBA. I've been teaching, ACCA for donkey's years, actually, around 30 years. But SBL, of course, since the beginning of this examination, September 2018. That was the first sitting. But prior to that, the equivalent papers in the old syllabi. Right? So very familiar with SBL. I've also taught other subjects, such as performance management, advanced performance management, and many others, management accounting, law, even UK law. I taught. That's how I started my teaching career. And so that kind of that breadth of experience in those areas does feed in to how I teach the SBL course, because they're all relevant. They're relevant bits from each of those. But I'm not, I'm more than a trainer. I've also headed 2 international businesses, one Central and Eastern Europe and the other in the Middle East and North Africa, where I was executive director for EY Training Center. Okay, so that's all about me. Enough about me. So what we're going to be talking about: how do we structure our answers, right? Our case study based answers. Critical. I just want to say that the main reason that people don't succeed, students don't succeed with SBL, is not because of a lack of technical knowledge. It's about using an inappropriate structure or inappropriate exam technique. All right, and so students aren't gathering the marks that they could do if they'd use the right technique. So we're talking about how do you structure your answers. Time management, one of the things about exam technique that most students actually have a challenge with, and we'll be talking about the need to be disciplined with time management. Also, we'll be talking about question practice on the platform. By now, you should have had some experience already of using the ACCA's Test Reach platform and attempting questions on it. If you haven't, please remedy that as soon as possible, okay? Because that's what you're going to be facing in the real exam, and so you don't want to waste time in the real exam thinking about, oh my God, where do I, which button do I press to get whatever it is, and then we'll have, as Richard said, a live Q&A after I've addressed some important questions which I received before today. So let's get started with the first one. Now, just some background, which you should all be familiar with by now. The preceding case study is released 2 weeks before the real exam. And the ACCA have said, look, I know 2 weeks is not very long, but we know, it's not very long, but we've done it actually deliberately. Okay, the examiner, in fact, said this at an event that the ACCA organized, right? We've done it for a reason, because we don't want students to spend, weeks and weeks, doing research on the industry, on the particular organization, and memorizing the data and so on. The aim of the pre-seen case study is to provide a context for your answers in the examination. What do I mean by that? I mean that the pre-seen will, for example, tell you something about the culture of the organization, the mission and values of the organization. It'll probably give you some numbers. It'll tell you something about the strategy. It'll tell you who the stakeholders are and which stakeholders are most important. And so it'll tell you a lot of stuff, right, that is not directly linked to the questions you'll be asked, but your answers need to reflect that. So, for example, if you want to suggest a strategy in your answer in the examination, then that strategy has to connect with what you've been told about culture and what you've been told about the vision of the organization in the preceding case study. If you want to talk about I don't know, some kind of SWOT analysis in your answer in the examination, then that kind of answer needs to be couched in terms of what the preceding case study has told you about the industry in which this organization operates. So that's the connection, all right? Now, having said all of that, for goodness sake, don't try and guess what the questions are going to be, because the questions are going to be based on information that you're going to be provided with in the examination, right? They're not going to be based on information that is given to you in the preceding case study, right? And so don't try and question SWOT. Don't waste your time thinking, well, if they ask about this topic, let me, this is what I need to say, right? Because they probably won't, right? They probably won't. So don't do that. And the ACCA has said time and time again, don't try and question SWOT. So that's why the case study is released a relatively short time before the real exam, okay? It's to understand the context. And of course, please remember that the case study will be available in the examination. Now, that does not mean that you wait until the examination before you read it for the first time. For goodness sake, don't do that, right? The reason that the case study is going to be available in the exam is if you want to kind of refresh your memory on a particular fact, maybe some numbers, then you can quickly open the case study up. You know where to look, you know what you're looking for, and you pick up that data, embed it in your answer, and you move on. But I don't want you spending ages and ages rereading the case study or analyzing the case study. You should have done all of that well before. And I'll show you how you would do that in just a minute. Okay, so that's what the case study in the examination is for. So what do we do with the pre-C? Well, there's a technique which I rather like, which actually I developed with my first group in September 2018. And basically the aim of this technique is to consolidate, if you like, all of the key information from the preceding case study into a SWOT analysis, all right? Now, some things to say about it. Why are we doing it? Primary reason to have like one piece of paper, one page, if you like, electronic page, or 2 pages, which really have all the key elements of the case study there. So you don't have to keep reading through the case study, all right, and try to memorize stuff. It's there. So the day before the examination, just scan through it, make sure you're kind of familiar with it, and you'll be fine. So that's one reason for doing it. The other reason for doing a SWOT analysis, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. The other reason for doing a SWOT analysis is it gets the mind thinking about the areas that are more or less important to that organization in that context, in that industry context, right? So that's what it's there for. So you're thinking, right? What could this mean? Is there a competitive threat? What about who are the key stakeholders? Whatever, some stakeholder analysis, like whatever it is, right? But you start to focus on the facts of the case study, really important. So that by the time you start to answer questions, it's embedded in your minds and your memories, and hopefully you minimize the amount of time that you'll need to go back and look at the case study in the examination. Okay. And as I say, here, it allows you, because you've done some thinking, you might think, oh well, there's some stakeholder analysis here, there, in the pre-scene. Oh yes, I know, Mendelow's matrix. That's pretty useful for stakeholder analysis. And you do a quick revision in your mind, or you look at your notes about Mendelow's matrix. So there you have it in your fingertips, and you can use that as the structure, or to structure part of your answer in the examination. Just a quick reminder, for goodness sake, in the exam, please do not name and explain frameworks and models. Don't do it because it carries, guess how many marks? 0, right? You don't get marks, right, for memory work, okay? The only way you use your frameworks and models is if you feel that a particular framework will help you to structure your answer in a systematic way. It gives your answer structure and cohesiveness and so on, and that attracts marks, right? Because it's easily understandable, it covers all the key areas and so on. But don't name and explain models. Please don't waste your time. I told you, SBL is different, okay? All right, now what does one of these SWOT things look like? And I'm going to try and share a screen right now with you. And there we go. Right, so hopefully you can all see this, right? The pre-seen SWOT analysis. It's just something I put together. By the way, you can download a template, a blank version of this. It's available to you in this presentation. So you just got the details of the exam sitting and so on, and then you just write down strengths and weaknesses. So, for example, I've written for this particular, the real exam, September 2023, on the strengths of this company, Courgette, it was a cost leadership business. It was lean, it was flexible, it was profitable, it was probably it had competitive advantage because of its low cost base and so on. That's why I put it in as a strength, right? A weakness, well, again, this will be fairly obvious from the pre-seen case study. There are weaknesses with flight delays. Now, the flight delay itself is not a weakness, but the systems which allow this to happen are the weakness in the organization. I put down flight delays. Why? Well, because it's simply a reminder of the things I need to be thinking about. Customer complaints, same thing. Maybe there's a challenge with the training of our people. Maybe there's a challenge with the culture of the organization. Again, customer complaints itself are not a weakness, they're a symptom of the weakness. But for me, they're a reminder of what I should be thinking about, okay? So that's what it looks like. It's quite you see, it's quite a lot there, strengths, weaknesses. And then at the bottom are the opportunities and threats, and there are lots of those around. And then I just, if there's any other stuff that I wanted to think, I thought was useful, I would put it in at the bottom, other information. Okay, different passenger and airline types, so ANSOS matrix, so product market matrix, yes. Some thoughts: if the airline industry is to survive in the long term, it needs to invest significantly in alternative fuel sources, and so on. Okay. Now, before I stop sharing this with you, it really does not matter, whether you put something in a strength or a weakness or an opportunity or a cost. Okay, it doesn't matter because there often you'll find things that could come into both or either. Remember the reason for doing this is to get everything on one page. Okay, that's it. That's what this SWOT analysis is for. Now, how do you put this all together? Well, this is what I strongly recommend, and that is do it in a group first. Okay, do it in a group first, in the sense that first you read the case study, you do your own individual SWOT, and what I do with my students is I simply share my SWOT on the cloud, okay, with them, and then they just add to it and so on. And then we have a kind of a group SWOT analysis. And then we talk through the points that we've made, we justify them and so on. And we end up with something that's actually really very valuable, okay, and contains the thoughts of your group. If you don't have a group per se, then just do it with, find somebody who's also sitting SBL and do it with that person if you possibly can. But yeah, the more the better, I think, when it comes to this. because you have a greater diversity of opinion, right? So that's how you analyze the pre-scene. Now, if you have any questions on this, please make a note, and I'll put them in the Q&A section, and we will address them afterwards. All right, so here's what the exam looks like, all right, on the TestReach platform. Okay, you'll be familiar with this, or some of you will. On the left-hand side there, we see the exhibits. Now, the thing to remember about exhibits, unlike the previous structure of the SBL examination, these exhibits are short, right? They will typically be no longer than one page, no longer than one page. You see the pre-scene case study there, it's on the pre-scene information tab, and then you have the tasks. Okay, here's task number 1, and you see that it carries 32 marks. Now, again, this is different from the old structure. In the old structure, you just had the tasks all on one page. Here, you answer task 1, right? And after you've done that, you then move to task 2 by pressing the next button. Okay? Underneath, you have the response options. Now, generally, I recommend against using spreadsheets in SBL. A lot of students get very excited when they see numbers. Please remember that with SBL, numbers are only a part of the story, part of what you want to say. All right, they support a much bigger answer. Right, so it's not about carrying out 20 different ratios and trend analysis and God knows what else. I mean, I've seen some amazing things done by students. All right. In an answer, let's say it's a 10-mark answer, about 2 to 3 marks worth, right, of that answer will be on the numbers. Okay, the numbers that you choose and the conclusions that you draw from the numbers that you have identified. For example, gearing. If gearing is going up, you say, well, that means risk is high. That means your shareholders are going to feel a little insecure, they want higher dividends. It means that we need to make sure that we have enough cash flows and so on, right? But your answer doesn't stop at gearing is high. No, not for SBL. You're way past that stage. You're now a strategic advisor. You're talking to the board. You imagine going to the board and saying, guys, the gearing is high, yeah, and they say, we know that, right? But we're paying you a fee as a strategic consultant to tell us what that means for us, right? And that's how you need to be thinking in the examination. So don't get too excited by the numbers. Unlikely you'll need to use your spreadsheet, right? Because you'll do relatively few calculations, and opening a new response option and putting all the numbers in the spreadsheet, even copy paste, does take time, which you perhaps don't need to spend, all right? So most of your answer will be on the WP, okay? And what do you do once you've opened the WP? By the way, there is a slide option here as well, response option. You can obviously use that because very often you will be asked for slides and notes. Or you can put your slides in your WP, right? As long as you label it slide, right? And then you put the points in that you would in the slide, and then underneath you label it notes, and then you write down your notes. Okay? So either is fine. Either is fine. I personally prefer just staying with a word process. It saves time. Okay, it's all one thing. There you go. So you've done task number 1. You then move on to the next task. So what do you do when you open the exam, right? Well, the first thing you do is you copy paste your tasks into your response option, as I said, which is going to be your WP, and you analyze it. What I mean by analyzing the task, what I mean is at what time do you finish, or must you finish, your answer to that task, right? Time, and it's a finishing time here, right? Not how many minutes you'll have, but at what time you will finish. And I'll explain why in just a second. Also, things that you do in your analysis, the number of points that you need to make, and by that I mean you work on the basis of 2 marks per point. So if it's a 10-mark question, then you need to make 5 fully explained, I repeat, fully explained points. One sentence is not going to earn you 2 marks. You highlight your key words. So, for example, if the question says, something, the task says, advise the marketing director, right, or do an analysis of a particular of the company organization's performance thus far, then you need to advise and you need to analyze, right? Don't just, it has to, the way you answer has to be focused based on the key words. And again, I'll show you some examples. Format is really important. Okay, so if the question asks for a briefing paper, then guess what? You have to give the examiner a briefing paper, right? No big surprise there, right? But if you don't do that, then basically the examiner says, well, you're not really following your instructions. You're not doing what you've been asked to do, and actually that shows a lapse in professionalism, and that could actually reduce the professional skills marks that you earn. Right, so getting the right format doesn't earn you more marks because that's what you should be doing anyway, right? But not getting the right format or ignoring the requirement for a format could lose you. Okay. Your role, the role that you're in, is really important because, again, if you don't speak in the way that someone in your role would speak, then again, it's seen as a lack of professionalism, and the marker may well reduce your professional skills marks. So if you are a consultant reporting to a board, the tone and approach that you will use in your answer is going to be different to if you are a marketing director or a CEO reporting to the board. Okay, and that's what it means. So that's why your role is important. And identifying which exhibits are going to be relevant for each task. Okay, so that's what you do. Now, there are only 3 tasks, right? And so, giving yourself about 3 minutes for each one is probably about right. But, again, you have to practice doing this so that you're faster. Then what you do, you read and highlight the keywords in the exhibits, ignore the numbers. Really important to ignore the numbers. I'll tell you why in a second. Now, as I've already said, there are relatively few exhibits and they're all about 1 page long. So go through them quickly and highlight the keywords. And for goodness sake, I mean keywords. I don't mean highlight the whole exhibit, okay? The aim of a highlight is that your eye is drawn to that piece of key information. You highlight the whole exhibit, right? It defeats the whole purpose of highlighting, right? And ignore the numbers. Why? Well, because sometimes you'll be given numbers in the pre-scene, sometimes you'll be given numbers in the exhibits. You don't know what to do with those numbers until you know what the question is, right? So if they give you, I don't know, 3 years income statement, right? Don't suddenly start calculating 5,000 ratios because you're not going to need 4,999 of them, right? So just know that it's there. When you look at the question and you say, okay, well, calculating gearing or calculating this working capital ratio will be useful in supporting my answer, then you go back to the numbers and you have a look at those and you calculate just those 2 ratios, right? Note, format, tone, professional skill. Now, I've already spoken about format and tone, right? Professional skill, you need to be experts and have to demonstrate those. First, you need to know what they are, and then you need to know how to demonstrate them in your answer. For those of you who haven't done the ethics and professional skills module, I would strongly recommend it because you do learn what those professional skills mean when you do that. And it does substantially, these are the ACCA's own numbers. I'm not going to quote, but don't quote me exactly. I think it improves pass rates by around 15%. It might be more, but it's definitely not less. Okay, so worth doing the ethics and professional skills module right before you sit this examination. Now, the last thing I want to say, I did say I'd come back to the time issue, which is the first point there. And basically what I mean by that is when you start a question, let's suppose you start at 9 a.m., right? It's got 10 marks, right? And we work on the basis of 1.8 minutes per mark because 180 minutes to earn 100 marks. So 1.8 minutes per mark multiplied by 10 is 18 minutes. So you'll finish up, or you'll stop writing your answer to that question at 9:18, and that is what you will put into your analysis, right? When you do your analysis of the tasks. No point saying 18 minutes, right? Because by the time you get to question 3, part C, right, you won't remember exactly what time you started it. And so knowing that you've got 18 minutes to complete it is useless. Okay, it doesn't tell you what time you need to complete it. So always put in the finishing time. It's just much easier when you're in the exam. You put the finishing time. When the clock hits that time, you stop. That's it. Full stop. I don't care if it's the best answer that anyone in the world has ever written on this topic. You stop. Right? I'll tell you why in just a minute. Okay, so here's what I mean by stage 1 from the previous slide. I've copy pasted the task. There's an introduction which I've also copy pasted. All right, and then part A. There you go, 12 marks for the technical and 4 marks for the professional skill. Okay, what have I highlighted? Well, Courgette's CEO recently gave an interview to a leading Poland business magazine. Right, so, okay, reason this, a bit of context really. The chief people officer about to chair a staff representative committee meeting, so it tells you the context of who the audience is. Very important, who's the audience. And thinks it'd be useful to communicate some of the key points of the CEO's interview staff. She has asked for your help in preparing for this meeting. So now you know for whom you are producing this answer. You know who the audience is, and therefore that's going to influence the way in which you present your answer. Okay. Part A, prepare briefing notes, and I've already spoken about the format. Okay, and the ACCA has produced guidance on what the format should be. So I would recommend that you look those up. Prepare briefing notes to the CPO, which outline the problems in culture. So you say outline the problems in culture. It's not saying what is the culture. It's not asking what is culture. Okay, simply what the problems are. So don't waste your time explaining culture. Using some model to talk through it, and then saying that, well, if the culture isn't right, then it's going to affect performance, blah blah blah. 0 marks so far. However, if you say the problems of the culture are in this organization are number 1 this, number 2 this, caused by the previous leadership style and the impact that the current leadership style has had on Courgette's culture. Okay, so highlight there are 2 parts to this question. That's why you highlight both of them. Notice also that you can use these highlighted bits. So problems in culture, I would put that in as a subheading, and then impact of the current style, I would put that in as a subheading. Why? Well, because it shows the marker that you're answering both parts of the question. It just makes the marker's life easier. And if that happens, makes your life easier by giving you more marks. All right. Now there are 12 marks, so you can assume there are 6 marks available for each part, right? For each underneath each subheading, which means 3 points under each subheading. There you go. You've broken down your question already. You know how much you're going to talk about, or how much you're going to need to say. And then you told them what the professional skill is, commercial acumen. Okay. Showing insight and understanding of the impact of leadership styles on Courgette's culture, right? So here the examiner is saying, what's the impact? Talk about impact. Don't tell me what the leadership style is. Don't tell me what the culture is. Tell me what the problems are with culture and what the impact of the current style is or has been. Now, there are 4 marks. By the way, you probably or should know by now that the professional skills, there are 5 of them. Each of them will be tested only once in each examination. And in total, they'll carry 20 marks. And so individually, they will carry 4 marks. Okay? So here's my analysis. Exhibit 1 is the one that I've decided is most closely linked. Okay? Because Exhibit 1 is actually the interview. 9:29 is the finishing time, and in total I'm going to make 6 points, so 3 points under each heading. And there you go. That's all I do. That's my plan. There. Okay? Takes a few seconds. End of story. End of story. And you repeat that for each question. Okay? So that's your analysis. Next step, analyze your exhibits. And here you see, an example of what I did. So entrepreneurial spirit and drive could not maintain their early success. So basically the starter, the people that started this organization, right, had great spirit and drive, obviously, because they were successful. The problem was that as organizations grow, the leadership style needs to evolve. Okay, so that's why I've highlighted it. Customer complaints and staff turnover at highest levels 10 years ago. Right, so this is in the past. Remember, we had the question about previous leadership style. Well, there's some relevant information. Right, leadership style seemingly wasn't focused on customer and staff satisfaction, and that's why I've highlighted that. Okay, so that is what I would do. Now, as we said earlier, all of this is going to take you 10 minutes. 10 minutes for the analysis. And then 5 minutes for analyzing the exhibits. And there we go. Then we have the format, briefing notes, and this is the format that I suggest, right? From to, date, subject. Okay. Now, it doesn't really matter what you're asked for. You can be asked for briefing notes or a statement for the board or whatever the title they want to give it. It's fine. You can still use from to, date, subject. Just copy paste it. This into your next answer and just change the heading. Now, the only difference is if you ask for a report. If you ask for a report, you'll still do from to, date, subject, but you'll also have an introduction and a conclusion, all right, for a report. For the others, you don't need to. Okay? Introduction and conclusion for a report, and you just do from to, date, subject. Now, I'll tell you a small shortcut. Okay, when it comes to subject, what you do is don't make it long and complicated. Just copy paste from the culture. Copy paste from the question, and you'll see I've done that here. The problems in culture caused by the previous leadership style and the impact of the current CEO's leadership style is having Porsche culture. You recognize those words from the task, right? So just copy paste it, edit it a bit. It's taking me a second to do that. So thinking, what should I call it? What should the subject be like? And then I've got my 2 subheadings: problems with previous style, impact of new style. 3 points for each, under each subheading. And there you go, of your uncle. All right? 3 fully made points, though. Please remember that when I say 2 marks, that means you're expected to spend 3.5 minutes writing that point. 3.5 minutes. Which means more than 1 sentence. Okay. What if my time management goes wrong? Well, the first thing to say is don't allow it to. As I said before, it doesn't matter what's the best answer since the beginning of time. All right. You stop writing your answer as soon as the time runs out for that answer. Okay. What the ACCA finds consistent is that the students who pass are the ones who have made an attempt at the whole of the paper. And you can't do that if you overrun on time on the earlier questions and you don't leave yourself enough time to attempt the later questions. Okay? That is almost a recipe for disaster. Okay? So don't do it. Don't do it. Is what I would say. So how do you avoid doing it? Well, practice. Yeah, analyze the task. I've told you already. What you need to do is do this regularly, right? On the platform, Okay, so you get accustomed to it and you become fast at it. You don't want to spend longer than the 15 minutes that you have available for your reading and so on, planning time. Practice under time conditions. Yeah, discipline yourselves, right? When you're doing practice exams, to stop when you're supposed to. So with my students, I have them on timed exams on the platform, and they have to stop. So you need to understand what it feels like, so it becomes normal for you to stop when time runs out. Focus on maximizing your marks per minute, not on explaining the background theory, repeating facts, etc. If you're asked for a problem with culture, then talk only about the problem with culture. Anything else is a waste of time. Anything else is not maximizing the marks that you're earning for each minute that you are in the examination, which has to be your goal. Every minute that you're there, you want to squeeze out as many marks as possible. Right? So backgrounds, theories, etc., don't do it. Waste of time. All right, that's this slide. I think that's all of those. Question practice. I'll shut up for a second, give you the opportunity to answer a short poll. There are two of them. Do you practice questions on the practice platform? It's really important. And tell the truth, it doesn't matter, even if you don't, but it is important that we know. We don't have long before the exam, right? So we need to make sure that we are ready. So I'll give you a minute to answer that, please. Okay, I'm moving to the next result. Oh, well done. So over half of you do practice, I guess regularly, that's how it's interpreted, and almost 30% of you practice sometimes, yes. This should be, practice, you should be on the platform at least 5 or 6 days a week, all right? This should be something that you can do with your eyes closed. Those of you who don't do it, you've just about got enough time, all right, to familiarize yourselves with how the platform works, all right? You cannot afford to wait until the exam before you learn to use the platform. You're going to waste time, and you don't have time. So there's nothing more important than the following. Number one, work on your exam technique to apply the state explain apply rule till it becomes automatic. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that in order to earn your 2 marks, a nice structure to use is the following. State your point. So, for example, there is a new competitor in the market. Statement. Fact, right? 0 marks so far. Explain. This is coming from you. It's not coming from the case study. Explain. You will say, well, the problem with that, of course, is that it provides competitive threat. It can reduce our market share, it can impact our profitability, etc., etc. Okay, and so on. So that's our explanation. Apply is the bit where you say, we therefore need to talk to, or we need to develop a strategy to respond to this competitive threat. In this particular instance, I would recommend a cost leadership strategy because we are big, we can exploit economies of scale, whatever it is. All right? That is what I mean by state, explain, apply. The point was a new competitor. The application was, this is what we should be doing. Remember, you're usually in the position of a consultant or an advisor to strategic managers. That's what they want to know. Don't give us facts. Tell us what we need to know so that we can take action. Okay? So state, explain, apply. Again, something that you should do practice a lot on the platform. And of course, there's lots of, I've recorded a few webinars which are available to you of the ACCA's resources which talk about that. Familiarize yourself with the platform, I talked about that. Practice planning and analysis stage 2, you can do it in 15 minutes. Exchange answers with a colleague for marking and feedback. Yeah, again, going back to, working with somebody, it's really valuable because you can self-mark on the platform. So once you've attended an exam, exchange with a colleague and get, mark each other's, or you can, download them, print to PDF, download them and email, exchange them with a colleague and mark each other's. Okay. It's a really good way of seeing what it's like, to be in the market position. It's a really good way to see what mistakes someone else is making, and you think, oh my goodness, I did the same thing, and improving. So I would recommend it. Exchange answers. Get accustomed to answering the question. Yes, as I keep saying this, don't give theory and feedback and context and blah, blah, blah. Okay, answer the question. Only answer the question, because that's the only thing that's going to earn you marks. And finally, get accustomed to earning professional skills marks. And that has to be the subject of a separate webinar. Best practices between now and the big day. First of all, don't sit there memorizing the textbook. I see so many SBL students saying, yeah, I'm learning all my theories. No, waste of time. Waste of time. By now, you should have already been through the theories. You should, that should have happened a few weeks ago. Now, what you need to do is start applying them to an examination. You can't remember a theory. You know there's a model that you could use, but you can't remember the details. By all means, go back and look at the model, right? Don't sit there reading your textbook. Please, a waste of time. And don't memorize the theories and models. Apply them. You'll memorize them as you use them. So what to do now? Time to practice, marking and feedback, testing on the ACCA platform, marking and feedback. Without this, you cannot assess, all right, how well you are doing. And, I keep repeating, there's lots of guidance on marking and feedback from the examining team from earlier examinations. So you know what the pitfalls are, what mistakes students make on a regular basis, and learn from those so that you don't do the same. Okay, pre-June mock and debrief release dates. Anyone know when they are? You have a choice of 4 dates there, or 3 dates and 1 don't know. If you don't know, it's fine. But just something that I want you to remember, please, because they're very useful for your practice. So have a go at those, please. Can you respond to that poll? Oh my goodness, about 0 people. Oh no, thank you. Just give you a minute. All right, I'm conscious of the time limit. 13th and 17th May is the correct answer. Please remember those dates, all right, and make sure that you attempt the pre-June 2024 mock exam, okay? It's really important that you do that. It's going to be on the platform. So please remember 13th and 17th May. All right, so now we go to the Q&A. I'm sure you're very happy to. I'm going to shut up eventually. I haven't stopped talking about that. Let me just go through the ones that were sent in earlier. I'll go through these as quickly as possible and then open up to live questions now. So my first sitting of SBL, can you confirm if you can navigate through the questions, jumping from one to the next and back? And the answer is yes. All right, I would recommend that you answer them in sequence. All right, but you might choose to start with number 2 and then go back to number 1. That's fine. Or you might be answering them in sequence, and then you suddenly remember something else that you want to say in the previous question. You can go back. Everyone gets the same pre-scene, or will students get one of a few versions? It's the same pre-scene for everyone. Okay, different versions of the exam, pre-scene will be the same. For which year past questions to date is advisable for a student to practice with? Can we start past paper practice in 2018? to date or 2021 or earlier date. So the answer is start with September 2018. Okay, plus of course the ACCA has plenty of test practice exams, specimen exams, etc. on the platform. So there's plenty of stuff, okay, for you to be practicing with. September 2018. How do I prepare for the exam for 5 weeks before the? How do I prepare 5 weeks before the exam? I think is the question. And the answer is, well, I've already answered it. Practice on the platform. I can repeat all of that. I hear most people say SBL is 2 marks per point, meaning I have to rate 5 points per 10-mark question. Correct. But if I feel that my point may not score 2 marks, can I rate more than 5 points? Yes, of course you can, as long as you don't overrun on time. Okay, but again, try and go for the state explain apply. Try and get your full 2 marks. Remember, you have 3.5 minutes in which to write your answer. There will be times when you can't think of that, what to say, in the application stage or what have you. In which case, write down as much as you can in the time that you have available. All right, thank you very much. I will now shut up and open up to Q&A. So I've got some here. Thank you very much for sending them in. Thanks for the great discussion. Could you please confirm how many points we have to write on a question by culture breakdown? You mentioned 6 points. Shall we have to write 2 of 6 points and then explain their impact? So 3 points. No. So 3 points under each heading. So hopefully I've answered that question. Right. So 6 points in total. Okay, 3 under each heading. All right. Next one. Marta, can you clarify how much we need to write, for example, for a 16-mark question? 16-mark question, 8 points, right? Each point, state, explain, apply, okay, earning 2 marks. That's the goal. That's the goal. Now, how much do you, it's not about how many pages, right, but really about the quality of the points that you get. I'll be appearing for PM and SBL in June. I have not completed the EPSM. Should I complete it before? No, before appearing for the exam would be ideal. Raj, moving on to planning. Will each question be based around one individual exhibit or the questions relate to multiple exhibits? So each question will have most of the answer in one exhibit. Maria, which technical articles would you recommend are most important in your opinion? Well, there are, basically I would look at the ACCA's technical articles, all right? But at this stage, I would focus on practicing past exam papers, okay? Don't spend too long on the articles. Spend more time. I would suggest, start with the articles kind of earlier on in the process. If, maybe 6 weeks before the exams, or 7 weeks before the exams. Martha, would you recommend us copying and pasting the whole question in the WP before answers we don't have? Yes, I would. I think we addressed that one. Copy paste the whole question. Absolutely. Are we allowed to take our analysis of pre-seen into the examination? Definitely not. Not allowed to take anything in. What would you advise the strategy to look in these few weeks? I think I've answered that. Is the exam easier because of the pre-seen? What is your opinion? No, I don't think it's easier. The only reason the pre-seen was introduced was basically to bring it in line with the other exam papers at this level in terms of timing, 3 hours 15 minutes. All right, and but it definitely hasn't made it easier. Can we use tables for weaknesses and recommendations even if they did not ask to present in table format? Answer yes. You can format it, lay it out in any way that you think is easiest for the marker. Marta, could we please go through how to gain 2 marks within one same ideal paragraph? Thank you. I think we did that as well with the competitor example that I gave. And I think that's all I have in the Q&As. Some questions ask candidates to plot risks on a heat map or construct. No, you will never get asked to construct a BCG matrix. You won't get that question, okay? You will not be asked to write any, to draw or describe any particular framework. So you won't be asked to do that. Yes, plot risks on the heat map. That's only ever happened once. Okay, and they didn't give you a heat map. The examiner didn't give you a heat map, but you had to say where it would come on the heat map. All right, so high risk, high impact, low risk, low impact, what have you. Right, so yeah, but I've only seen it ever asked once. All right, any more questions? We still have 6 minutes, I can't believe it. Good Lord. Any more questions? Speak now, speak now. First 15 minutes, should we dedicate them to make a schedule for all the questions of the exam? Well, I'm not quite sure what you mean by schedule of all the questions. When you do your analysis of the tasks, you have your finishing time for each task. So in that way, I guess you're making a schedule for all of the questions, no? So, you finish task 1C at, I know, 10:15. You finish task 2A at, I know, 10:37. So you're scheduling. That's exactly what I mean when I talk about your finishing time. How do we use the PowerPoint? I assume you mean the slides. Well, again, very easy to use. You have 2 sections for each slide in the response option. The first is the slide itself, and you can key in all the points that you want to make there. And then underneath, you'll have a section which says notes, and you just key in your answer there. It's like a WP. Okay, very simple. Have a look at the platform. Let's say we were asked to analyze the competition. We'd like to use 4 to 5 forces. I understand that we don't need to explain the model, but would it be seen as a non-pragmatic approach to use the actual model as subheadings? I think that's a great idea. One of the uses of a model is to use them, use it as for subheadings. Okay, that's fine. Just don't explain the model. Threat of new entrants, etc. Because CSO might not actually use this theory when emailing the board. No, that's true, but they might. Okay. How many questions should we solve before the exam? Well, as many as possible. I would, as I say, I would recommend that you're on the platform 5 to 6 days a week. Right? You're not going to be able to attempt a 3-hour exam every day. It's unlikely that you'll be able to do that for a number of reasons. But certainly, I want you to practice the writing answers. I want you to doing proper exams under timed conditions. So how many? As many as you can. Okay, there's no fixed number that, if you solve 8 questions, you will pass, and if you solve 7, you won't. Okay, as many as you can. The important thing is the experience in the game. Some questions ask candidates to follow. Okay, so I think we've got that one done. What are the characteristics of a well-developed point? State, explain, apply. Is the characteristic, or are the characteristics? Luke, the remaining few weeks of the exam should be spent on question practice rather than learning content. Correct? Yes, absolutely. Can you pass the exam using common sense if you get some of the framework? Be careful about using common sense because you do need to show commercial judgment as well, okay? You don't have to use frameworks. The frameworks are there as a tool for you to use to structure your answers, right? You don't have to use them. In fact, there's one of my students who got 80-something% without using a single framework, right? But I wouldn't rely on that. Frameworks are there for your use them. So yes, you don't rely on common sense, okay? This is about commercial judgment. And if you forget a framework, that's okay. Do the best you can to structure your answers in a way that makes sense. How much is the finance portion expected in the exam? I don't know what you mean by finance portion. I mean, they'll give you numbers. You decide how many or how few of those numbers you want to use. But please remember, the numbers are not the answer. The numbers are simply supporting data for the answer that you recommend. Will Exhibit 1 relate to question 1 and so on? Yeah, often they will, but don't count on it. But it'll be obvious from the title of the exhibit, all right, which question it relates to. So that's what I would recommend. All right, I think we're about there. Thank you all for your questions, and I hope you found that useful. Richa, back to you. I think you're on mute, I think, Richa. Still on mute, can't hear you. All right, fine. So unfortunately, Richa's having a few technical problems, so I'll be happy to wind up here. So as I say, I hope you got some value from our time together. You will have access to the recording. Okay, so I would advise you to go through it again. I know it's an hour of your time, but it's time that is well spent, I hope. Okay, and remind yourself, and please make sure that you attempt past exams on the platform. Okay. I know that Richard had some information that she wants to share, but unfortunately can't do that because of her technical issues. So I will say thank you and goodbye to all of you. Right. Bye now.